Bonjour, Katy. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
It won't be in French. I don't want to make you nervous.
That's okay.
I've mentioned it too when I contacted you. You changed our life. You changed our lives. My husband and my son, we used to live in Montreal, in a big city. And over the years, we started walking more and more and just noticing that we wanted more nature. And now we live in the countryside, and so many things in our daily lives, we change them because of you. And I know the deep impact you can have on people's lives, and that's why I've been super happy to share your work and your books to our audience for the past, almost 7 years. I know also that you are kind of a rock star in the movement world, yet I still have a hard time explaining what's a biomechanist. Mm-hmm. So I'll start with a very simple question. What does a biomechanist typically do?
I'm not sure if there's a typical biomechanist. There's many paths of study at university, and not all of them lead to careers. I think that's the one thing that we tend to believe, is that you go to college to get a job. And I think you go to study something that you really like. And biomechanics is the study of biology and living systems and the mechanics arm of physics, forces. And then when you put them together, it's the way forces impact living systems. And biomechanists can be found in, it's the Olympics right now as we're recording this. So many biomechanists will work with Olympic teams to help them optimize their sport. Biomechanists will also go into therapeutics, designing prosthetics, for people who are disabled or have severe injuries and need to still create the same set of physical forces. Biomechanists can go into engineering, coming up with new devices or new materials that replicate what humans do, or they can go to study. There's many biomechanists who study injury, and they don't work with people one-on-one in a practical setting, but they research, why do certain discs in the spine always tend to deteriorate, and how would someone adjust? So there is no one. It's not like a doctor. It's not like a lawyer. It's not like a profession where most people are doing the same thing. It's just a set of knowledge, and some biomechanists study animals, non-humans, and study trees. There's biomechanists who study forests and how leaves fall and how that allows plants to populate. So there's no standard.
And why did you choose that path?
I don't know if I chose it or it chose me. I chose the program. I didn't know it existed, but I was flipping through my college catalog, and I had already done a lot of the math and physics. And personally, I was just starting to feel in my own body the importance of movement. So I wanted to take classes that allowed me to study this thing of movement. And when I put them together, what I had already studied, just because I like math and physics and thinking that way, with this physiology and anatomy, and to find there was a whole program, I was like, perfect, I'll study this.
As simple as that.
And that was for undergraduate, and then in graduate school, then I chose. Now I was on the path, and then when I was in graduate school, I was more interested in disease and pain and why our bodies seem to be breaking down in ways that were very predictable.
And is your field primarily focused on diseases, because your whole personal perspective is so much about lifestyle? Mm-hmm. Is it something you discovered in school, or it's something that comes from you?
Probably both. I was in school. I had just started graduate school, and I had helped many people just learn how to move better just through exercise. We don't have, I'll just leave that aside. So I wanted to help. I helped people move better, and then I went back to graduate school to understand, why was I seeing the same set of ailments in people, musculoskeletal conditions, not just diseases, but more like wear and tear. Why is osteoporosis showing up in the same sites in the body when it seemed counterintuitive that you wouldn't expect to see such young people, who lived in lots of nutritional access and information about how to take care of the body, that we would still see the same parts of the spine, the same areas of bone, the same muscles in the body, the same tendency towards falling, and when I compared it cross-culturally, it was like, oh, this isn't really what humans do, this is what a certain lifestyle of humans do. And then that became interesting to me, and that's what I was studying. And that was when you're in graduate school here, you can often put forward the ideas that you would like to look at, and that's what I wanted to look at, is more of a cross-cultural perspective, not just what was happening in North America, but across humans in a bigger perspective. And so I think it was self-driven, but I was already in the container that really helped me focus.
It's interesting because outside of your field, what I hear all the time is that this wear and tear is just normal living. Mm-hmm. There's such a huge belief and about the fact that aging is just falling apart. Mm-hmm. Did you feel that from the start you had to challenge that belief?
Well, some of my earliest work in graduate school was on pain and pregnancy, low back pain and pregnancy, because it didn't make sense to me that something that so many bodies would do would have to leave people bedridden when bedridden wasn't an option for people. And so we do think of wear and tear, we do say that language, wear and tear, injuries are just part of it, but we don't move our bodies that much. So something more had to be going on, because there was cultures that moved quite a bit more that didn't have wear and tear. So wear and tear is maybe not the biggest perspective to look at. And so I was always interested in challenging, why would such a large group of people not be able to pick up a baby after they had given birth because their pelvis and their lower back was in such pain that they couldn't tend a child? Certainly there's always been injuries. Certainly there's always been disease. And not to say that we haven't had those things throughout humanity, but I'm talking about a very large portion. When you have like 1 in 4 people, that's a very large percentage of humans, and that doesn't really make sense biologically. And so I was just curious of going, well, if we want to talk about wear and tear, what exactly is wearing and tearing on the body? Is it just movement, or is it, I don't think we think of sitting down as wear and tear. Sitting down is when you stop wearing and tearing. But actually sitting down was its own wear and tear. So that's that's what I was interested in highlighting.
And do you remember when you had kind of that breakthrough that across cultures, it's just different? Yeah, it was in my first semester of graduate school, and I just started reading more literature, more research studies from a much broader database. So instead of only reading studies about exercise done in college students in North America, which is where most of the information about movement comes from, I started reading about populations all around the world through all different ages and stages of life, and saw much different definitions of movement than what I was given in even pursuing academically the understanding of human movement. Human movement in North America was still really exercise, and it was athletics and dance and young people centric, young college people centric. And that's just different than the population of the world. And so it took me, once I learned how to use a database and learn how to read literature, it really opened up, because you have a textbook, you just have a small perspective. And if your textbooks all come from the same culture,
and are all sort of teaching the same thing, it's not to say what's in there is wrong, but its context is small. And so by reading more broadly, when I wanted to talk about low back pain or experience of pregnancy through more populations, I saw a different set of information by looking more broadly. So yeah, it was early in my studies.
And did you have this drive early also to share what you were discovering?
I think so. I think I'm maybe just naturally a teacher. It might be that the way that I learn is by, if I can walk you through the examples with my support evidence and you understand it, that's where I check how well I know it. So it's probably less a drive to spread information and more the byproduct or the exhaust of my particular learning process is, in order for me to learn it, I'm going to have to rewrite it out. I'm going to have to come up with my own examples, and I'm going to have to give it a different shape to make sure the principles have held up. And once it's there, then I really know it in my own body. And then if other people got to learn along the way, great.
Yeah, I feel the same. I don't feel like a teacher. Some people tell me that I'm a teacher. I just describe myself as a learner. I just have this need to share it with others because I feel it's my duty. It's valuable for others. But if it was just me, I would just keep my nose in my books and and read all the time.
Yeah.
And I know you also have a studio and you kind of teach people biomechanics there. Do you have this? Is it the same reality where you want to apply what you know to know it better, or it's a different kind of service for you?
Well, I think with movement, I like nuance. I like the small, there's big picture, and I love big picture, and I also like very up close pictures. And that's usually I'm panning in and out, always. And I think for movement and the way disease works in the body is on a smaller level. We can talk about large things like this culture's lifestyle is quite different, and here are some ways this culture is different than 3 other cultures. That's very big picture. And it is motivating to maybe someone to go, oh, right, that makes sense to me. But that's not that practical for how do I change? What do I do? So I personally have found lots of transformation through learning how to see my own body under a microscope, or really in a mirror, to see, like, you think you're doing this, but you're actually doing that. And so when we talk about culturally the impact of so much sitting, here's what it actually practically looks like in the body. And here's a move to try to get some of that chair out. And so both are necessary for me. So they're in the same thread, but they're a different perspective. And I believe that the more practical practice of doing the movements together is where the transition physically is able to happen more rapidly.
We kind of realized the same, because at first we were sharing our discoveries about hunter-gatherer societies. We shared photos, and we were super excited about it. And I realized my brain was able to make to create the bridge between what I was seeing and how to apply it in my own life. But I realized it's not the same for other people. And they were keeping asking, what do I do in my reality? I have kids, I'm super busy, I'm hurting. And this is when we also worked super, super hard to experiment stuff and showcase what we did in our own home and share with people along the way, even though we were always learning and we felt super vulnerable doing it. So, and we don't go into the details of biomechanics. We talk mostly about how to change habits and how to create a lifestyle. And we had a love for also active design, the effects of objects. And over time, I realized that the thing that was mostly stopping people was not their bodies. It was not physical limitations. It was the fact that changing your home to remove chairs or removing your shoes comes with a social standing. And in our culture, being barefoot or being underground is not so prestigious. And the resistance we felt over time from people was I do those things, and it's super hard because my own family doesn't get me. So I was curious to know your own journey. When you were doing those things in your life, what was the reaction around you?
Well, I think my own personal journey is a little bit different because part of my learning process has been creating a community with me. You know, part of sharing it means that I had more people supportive and going, oh, that's great. I'm going to try that and I'll share what I did. And so I think that probably my position in the movement, you know, the fact that I was creating a place of dispensing the information means that I didn't necessarily feel I was alone. That's different than being the only person in your hometown. You're not, you know, someone who's sharing what you're doing in a bigger way. So I'll share my journey, but I want to acknowledge that I think I've got special circumstances where professionally sharing my journey and having people support my journey was part of my package. But also I would say that while I am, you know, Katy Bowman out in the world, I'm also just Katy Bowman in my own community. And through meeting different people, you know, if you have children, it's a little bit easier because so many of the things that we want for our children are the same. We might have a separate individual family values, but, you know, people are always thinking about well-being of their children, you know, and they're like, oh, we need to move more. You know, I want them to have play. I want them to be supported emotionally and socially. We actually have a pretty great live community here where they've made similar modifications to their home, where birthday parties or celebrations, like one big thing that we had in our community is nobody gives gifts in our community. And that was not something that you would see in other communities, but it would be part of the invitation. Like we would send out a birthday invitation, no gifts, please, you know, but if you want to, like bouquets of flowers, or if your child wants to re-gift their favorite book or their favorite sweater, you know, that sort of thing. And then that became the norm for our group of friends. So no one felt uncomfortable doing it. So a big part of our journey on the community level was through communication. I'm looking for, you know, our kids are all off this week because of school holidays. Is there an outdoor activity that everyone would like to do to get together with? And these are just texts or emails to send, but you're figuring out what you want outside, movement, community, and you're putting it out there rather than feeling like you have to create the whole thing yourself. You're letting everybody know, and then everyone's like, oh yes, I would love that too. I would be, you know, and saying like, if you can't come because you might have to work, we'll take your kids, and does anyone want to drive? And then pretty soon you have a chance for other people to support and weigh in. So that was a big one. And really it only takes maybe one other family to not feel so alone. And if the resistance is in your own family, maybe not within your home, but maybe your parents or siblings, you could just say something like, we're really trying to stay moving more. So I'm going to be setting up my house, you know, with monkey bars inside, and you're welcome to hang on them, but don't feel any pressure to hang on them too. I think when people have negativity towards what you're doing is because they are assuming that you're expecting them to have to do something. And so just through communication, it's like, we're just doing this for ourselves. Don't like, no pressure on your end. And that immediately takes the defense down. And then they're like, oh, that's actually kind of cool. You know, instead of feeling like, don't do that. That's weird, or, you know, whatever.
Do you talk from experience? Did it happen to you? Someone coming to your home and not feeling comfortable moving around?
No, I don't. But so this is my personality, where I certainly like to be hospitable if there was someone coming to the house who needed something, I would make sure that they had it. But no, I don't give much weight to those kinds of interactions. Like, I feel confident enough in my own space and in my own decisions to have a good boundary. I mean, I think in the end, it's like psychology. It's like, how well are your boundaries, and how good are you at, how effective are you at communicating them? And yeah, if my house makes you feel uncomfortable, like, we can meet at your house, no problem. Or we can meet outside, no problem. And then where is a person going to go?
And your community, did you move there to be close to your friends, or did you choose a neighborhood where there were other families, or it kind of happened over time?
It happened over time. We moved here and didn't have anybody. So we did not move here with that expectation. But again, I'm quite active. I'm not, I would serve on a board. We saw a nature program, looking around and saw that there were a small nature program for babies and toddlers once a week. And then, I was like, let's go to that and let's see what's there and who's there. And then when the director of that program wanted to create a whole nature school, but needed people to support her in terms of not financially, but just attention, spreading the word, being on the board, then I will sign up for the board, because I am very active, like, not just physically, but I think sometimes, how do I want to say this? We're overwhelmed with the sense of any action at all. And so you were saying earlier that it's not people's bodies that are having a difficult time moving, it's their mind, and so I still think that that's a type of movement. I think that we're not psychologically flexible. And we can't, that changing habits is maybe just as much effort as picking up something heavy and moving it. Like, it really is the same to your body. It's the same feeling to your body. So I try to stay active physically and mentally, psychologically, by always going, oh, it's going to be, a little more work, or I'm going to have to be uncomfortable in my mind, but it's the same pep talk I'll give myself maybe of, I don't really want to go take a walk right now, but I will anyway. And once I get started, then I know it was just my mind chattering, which doesn't mean that you always have to move all the time. Sometimes you need rest, but yeah.
Is it something you talk with your kids openly, how to address discomfort and overcome adversity, or it just comes naturally?
I don't think it's adversity. I mean, I think that many families have a version of this. Some families are faith-based families, and they are valuing their faith, but maybe they don't have people of the same faith around them every single day. And it's not, I mean, it doesn't have to be adversarial. It just is like, these are our values and this is what we do. And some people have really tight boundaries around the food they eat. Maybe that family has to be entirely gluten-free for health reasons. Maybe the entire family's vegan for health or for value reasons. You don't have to have the same values as everyone else. You can have your values, and it doesn't have to feel oppositional when someone doesn't have your values. They just have different values, and that's fine. We all get to decide what's meaningful to us. It's like brushing your teeth. If you're a family that has decided that brushing your teeth or doing homework is what's meaningful to you, you will implement systems, and they will just become part of your parenting. For us, movement was just one of those things that we highly valued, and it doesn't take a lot of extra talk. It's just something woven into the fabric of our daily lives and of our choices. And
when your children have a hard time doing something that's important for them, and they see challenges, I think the mindset aspect, my question was about this also, when they are challenged by something they would like to do for themselves. Mm-hmm. Do you talk openly about the importance of having an agile mind as well?
I think so. My children are just becoming teenagers now, and that's a tricky time because teenagers especially want to fit in with the group. Maybe even they want to have their own identity separate from their parents, but a lot of that identity has to be the same as a peer group. And so they're in a tight spot because it's a natural progression for them. And really the support my kids need right now, or the kids at this age, is to help them identify those things about themselves that they don't want to lose to their parents because of their parents' preferences, or to their peers. This ability to really, like, who am I? What's important to me? And so we talk a lot because, that's more of a conflict time. It doesn't have to be a conflict time. I don't mean conflict in negative, but just they have contradictions. They see contradictions of, like, I really think this is, where I want to go. It's like, okay, and what's difficult with you in going this way? Maybe you're too young for the thing that you want to be able to do for whatever reason, or you're not physically capable of being able to do it, and then just chipping away at something hard. Or also knowing, like, sometimes you have to go with the group. Sometimes you have to be flexible enough to go with the group if what you get from the group is also valuable. Like, we're always doing what's like a cost benefit. And so the same goes for adults. And the more I share when I have to do something similar, then they see, like, I'll talk through, here's how I'm making this decision. I would rather do this, but I have to do this. But I also don't have to do this. I'm choosing to do this in some way because there's parts of it that I value. And that's what being an adult is, right? So by helping them be psychologically flexible, you're helping them mature into, like, you don't get to be an adult just because you get older. It's more of a mindset. It's an ability to have boundaries, to make choices. A lot of that is just what maturity is.
It's nice. My son is 3 years old. He's starting to make his own decisions on some things. He chooses clothes, for example. But the first years, like, I saw my role as a parent to create the environment, to create the life that would be where we could flourish, right? It's and I know from reading your books and your blogs that going back from the moment you were pregnant and even before, you were already thinking of what kind of experiences you're going to offer to your kids. And could you share kind of your journey from your pregnancy to the early childhood, how you created that life where movement could fit in, and what did you prioritize in each stages of development?
Well, the first thing that we did was get rid of a couch. And this was when a couch wouldn't even really matter to a toddler, or to a newborn. And I mostly did that for myself because I was given a lot of movements to do when I was pregnant for a smoother delivery and just to take care of my body when I was pregnant. And I found that I couldn't fit the volume in. I was very busy, working full time like so many people are. I didn't have time to do 75 minutes of stretching a day, but if I just didn't sit on the couch and sit on the floor, then I could fit those stretches into doing other things. And so I was like, okay, I don't actually need 75 additional minutes. I can just not sit in my couch. And then I was like, why do I have a couch? Like, what's the point of it? And so it happened to coincide with a move where we just made a decision to get rid of a lot of our seats. And then because we were psychologically flexible, but also just in a space of moving to a new place where we didn't have much and could rebuild from the ground up in terms of what we put in our house, we started to be like, well, we're going to have this little person walking around for the next 5 years. Why don't we just pick lower tables? And so, like, why don't we bring ourselves to this level of the child? And it seems like that would be really great for them because instead of them sort of always reaching up and seeing life above them will be here on the same level. And this approach is something we see in educational research, early childhood education, of having child height things is really great for their development and ability to fit into a space and feel connected to a space. And also, it is something that you see around the world, just not maybe in like Europe and North America, that this is actually the way the world has been set up for a very long time. And what are the benefits? Okay, well, not only this benefit for the child, but also you're sitting on the ground, you're getting those hip stretches in, you're getting up and down. So there was more movement in the piece at the same time. So it just hit too many boxes of what we were looking for to resist doing it. Like the only reason we wouldn't do it is because I couldn't imagine what a room like that would look like. I couldn't imagine, like, how will people feel when they come over to our house? It turns out they feel fine. Because they tend to have little kids too, and now they're on the ground, and the grandparents, they're going to be down on the ground with the kids anyway, and if not, they could put a couple chairs up for them, and they can have the space. Like, it just didn't seem like that big of a deal. The bigness of the deal was in our minds of and that's rigidity of that's so much of what culture is expectation of what it has to be, what you have to eat for breakfast, as if you couldn't eat whatever you wanted. Like what you have to wear, as if you couldn't wear whatever you wanted. So there's just a lot of what culture is are these invisible structures in our mind that we just inherited as how it has to be.
That's what fascinates me. Vince and I, we don't have a lot of resistance to change. Like if we see an idea that we like, we apply it kind of right away. So it came as a shock for us that with all our enthusiasm, we would present like nice pictures from hunter-gatherers or a new living room arrangement, and people wouldn't be like happy for us or just curious to know. It felt challenging sometimes because they were really in the culture expectations of what a home should be or how we should dress, and it really felt like something shifted from that moment because I couldn't grasp the fact that there was a culture there influencing. I thought that we were rational animals or I don't know, a feeling animal, but the power of culture is so much bigger than I expected. And you seem maybe quite less anxious than I was during my journey, but did you at any point felt just a bit tired sometimes of going counter culture? Just this idea that you have to question everything and you have to reinvent your own life all the time?
Am I tired? Yes. I am exhausted, but I'm not sure if my exhaustion is more swimming upstream, so to speak, or if it's just the stage of life. Just being a parent is exhausting. And I think, again, everyone is, I don't think there's one, there's a massive culture, and then there's smaller family cultures that we have to deal with, maybe our own family culture, and then there's your own inside your home culture, and there's you as an individual and your culture, and all those cultures are happening all at the same time. And sometimes the larger culture couldn't care less, but your family culture, your parents or your grandparents, that culture is way more influential over you. So I think just starting to see the layers of culture is helpful. You don't have to change anything, but just recognizing like, oh yeah, there's a lot of voices in my head telling me what I'm supposed to do. And when we talk about things like being authentic, like authentic is trying to get to what you actually think without, you could definitely listen and consider, but not necessarily just do because, you were told a particular way of doing. Like you might have some evidence like, well, I actually tried it this way and I feel better. Or my child feels better, and so we're going to do it this way. So I am tired. I was not tired earlier on from some of the I always think of like being counterculture, because again, I felt well supported in my professional space and well supported in my local space. And I know that that's one of the reasons we feel so tired, is we're trying to do it all by ourselves. Where I'm starting to feel tired now with teenagers is in the space of movement and technology. And I'm not even talking about like the personal home decision. Like, you can make lots of decisions about how you're going to use technology as a tool versus a weapon. Like, I think technology to me is fairly benign. It can be used as a tool, but it can also be used as a weapon. And in our home, it's not as big of a deal. And then as you start to get into the cultures that sit outside your home, it's more. And then if you get into the culture at large, like, there's lots of decisions being made at all of these different levels. And you don't have to deal with it as much when your child is 3, but when your child is 12 and 13 and 14, it becomes very central to your life. And it is quite exhausting, because you're dealing with home and personal relationship with technologies for your children, home and technology, school or education and technology, and the fact that you really can't do anything else that's not computer based when everyone decides to go in that direction. So you have to decide, like, what's my sphere of influence? Where can I make decisions that feel true to my values, including not burning yourself out? Like, that's also a value. So you just have to weigh a lot. But yeah, it's exhausting. I'm exhausted.
We're taking a vacation in August. But that's the thing. Vince and I, we realized that doing all of this, like going back to natural movements and bringing ancestral practices in our daily life is a lot. It's not easy. From the moment I thought it doesn't have to be easy. It's not supposed to be easy all the time, but it's worth it. That's the thing that helps me push through the hard times, where I kind of I remind myself, why do I do this? And I think it's something I want to bring to our audience as well. Like, we have in this society a promise that everything is supposed to be easy, like on demand. And we have to relearn to do things that we never did before. And it's a learning process. And that in itself is, I think, the challenge. Like, when you don't know something, but you want to do it, and you have no idea how to implement it. Yeah. And so with your children, when they were younger and babies, can you give a few examples of what your home looked like and how it evolved while they were growing up?
Well, when they're very little, I mean, I think probably from 0 to 5, it looked fairly the same. We didn't have a lot of seats, classic seats and chairs. We didn't have baby seats or those types of things. So there was space. Like, it just allows space, a lot of space for moving. If some homes are quite small, and if they're packed with lots of filler furniture, design wear, and things like that, which, aesthetic is beautiful, but if you're literally blocking the place for movement to happen, that can be tricky. So just having open space was really important to us. Encouraging squatting and ground sitting, because that's so formative to the body. That was really important to us. We've always had something to hang from, and that's changed throughout the years, but always a hanging station, some place where brachiation, using your arms was an option for whenever the feeling came up, something to jump off of, just to allow or promote jumping. Was a lot of the inside space. I did a lot of child carrying. That was the earliest movement environment, was not being in a seat or a stroller, but just being held, which I understand is challenging for many reasons. But It is a good exercise to do for you and for the baby itself. So if you couldn't do it all the time, just taking, a walk or, walk around the house, doing some of that holding. We sleep on the ground, very low to the ground. We co-slept, and that was really nice. It just allows a lot of autonomy, when toddlers are up, they can get up and out of bed, like there wasn't falling out of bed. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I mean, it really has mostly to do with furniture. And then a lot of our other decisions had to do around how are we spending our time? Getting outside more regularly, not always eating dinner or breakfast or lunch in the kitchen, at the table, even if it was a low table, but like sitting outside or packing a snack or a lunch and taking it on a walk, even dinner sometimes. I just found a recent video of me holding a thermos of soup while on a hike with my kids when they were like 5 or 6 at dinner time. And I was like, oh, right, that was just how we maximize time when we're working. You have to, most people work quite a bit, and that's the part that takes up a lot of their lives and feels like the stumbling block to these lifestyle changes. But if you feel like dinner has to be seated down inside the house, then there's no space to go. Like you work and then you have to sit down. But if you could think of dinner in a flexible way of going, maybe it could just be outside and we can go walk around, then you've solved your problem. And so that's what I mean by psychological flexibility.
That's it. We lived it. In Montreal, we had a small apartment and we tried to optimize the space inside. And then over time, I realized that active design shouldn't be only about indoors, but how can my home bring me outside more? Mm-hmm. And we recently this summer started to sleep in a tent. Mm-hmm. We have a home, but we decided to sleep in a tent because the experience is so much better. It's rich. We hear the birds and the insects, and it just flipped my perspective of, again, what's living. And I wanted to understand what we do with our homes, but now I'm challenging this idea that we need even a small home. And yeah, and I always like to encourage people to change their mindset about the norms in society.
Well, and we actually have a lot of friends. Everyone feels like they wish they had more time with their kids, especially as our kids are getting older. You want more time with your kids, but you have all these, you don't have time, or, you're like, I have to be at work in the morning and I have to work, and we have household chores. We can't afford either in finances or just in time to drive somewhere to go camping and take everything, or maybe you're a single parent and it feels overwhelming, the idea that you have to do so much when you are just literally exhausted mentally. Camping in the backyard is something that many people, and I live in a rural space, but I also know people who live in city spaces and they have yards. Like, that's our summer tradition, is that tent goes up and the kids love it. And sometimes we sleep in it all together. Sometimes just some kids. Sometimes we just go out and have dinner. Maybe we have a little, fire pit, and it feels like camping with none of the work. And so I think if you get yourself in a space where you think it has to be big and far and expensive, and those become your hurdles or your barriers, find the closest, smallest version. It could even be sleeping in your living room in sleeping bags, right? If you're like, I don't have a tent, I don't have a yard, great, then sleep in your sleeping bags in your living room. Just do something to move it around a little bit, and that's all it takes. It's so little to give your child a novel experience within the dwelling that they are already in, and novelty is a big part of what makes us wake up and pay attention and tune in. Those become our memories. Those become a lot of our defining characteristics.
And do you have an example of an idea that came from one of your child, that they came up with a new thing to do with the family?
Well, one of our big things is walking birthdays. Like, it's our tradition in our family, and it has been since they were very little, to walk their age in miles on their birthday. It doesn't have to be their birthday party or even on their birthday. It could be like a couple days before or after. And so that was it's a fun celebration to be able to do. And then now as they're older, I could use language like, we need a dynamic day for you and your friends. What are you thinking? And then they'll come up with like, let's go downtown. They can take the bus themselves now and like go to the ice skating ring and just go and skate for a few hours. And then we're going to go walk over to this place and get ourselves lunch. I mean, this is in a city setting now, but if I give the cue, like our family has language around being active versus inactive. We've pointed out enough. This is an active activity. This is an inactive activity or a sedentary activity. So right now, your week has got a lot of sedentary activities. Let's balance it with some active activities. So that could be, that's right.
Sorry.
That's okay. So once they start to see those characteristics of an activity, then they become able to pick and choose.
That's brilliant. I realize how I didn't challenge so much my networking activity or just my meetups with friends. Mm-hmm. I still fit the standards of let's have a lunch or dinner sitting at a table, even if it's a low table. Yeah. It's still not as active as a dynamic birthday or just having this to go on hikes with friends. It's not in our culture right now, but I realized that I could take the leadership to bring those ideas and see how people react and if they want to jump in.
Well, and a good way to always preface it is just by saying something like, have you been sitting a lot this week? And then someone's going to say, yes. It's like, I really want to get together with you, or I really want to do this meeting, or I really want to connect in some way. But I cannot just I've been inside sitting down so much. Is there any way we can connect and do something outside on the move? Right? Now that's an invitation. That's different than saying, I don't sit down at meetings. Feels very judgmental and saying about you. And the other one is just asking a question. It's like, how are you? Because I think that I rarely hear from people, I have just been outside moving way too much and I want to sit down. It just doesn't happen all that often. And so by just getting into the habit of communicating more thoroughly, you'll find that people are able to get their needs met more across the board, including you as a parent and your children.
Do you remember the time when they were toddlers? It's a harder time than I thought. Like some of the activities I used to do, I don't do anymore.
Just wait until they're 12 or 13.
Was it challenging for you, the toddler years?
Oh yeah, it's all hard. And it just keeps getting harder. It's harder in different ways. So I feel like with parenting, we don't talk honestly about the difficulty. It's very, very challenging, especially if you're trying to do it in a mindful, present way, where you're thinking about you're thinking about a family mission statement and you're thinking about your values. It is a lot of work. I would say when children are younger, it's more exhausting physically. And as children become older, it becomes more exhausting mentally. When your children are young, you're an extra set of arms. You're extra organs in their body. You're supporting them physically. Once they get to the point where they can support themselves much more physically, you become like an extra brain for them to help solve their mental, the processes in their minds, to help regulate their emotions. You're like an emotional ventilator for them. And that's exhausting work because you're still having to do all of your own work, plus you're doing theirs. So for me, movement has been the space where it becomes easier. Because if you're moving together, you're often meeting your own needs at the same time. Yes, you're still meeting the needs of your children, but not in a way that sacrifices your needs. And so when you're in that space, like I have found that moving more has given us energy. It doesn't drain energy in the way that you think it will. it ends up it becoming a little bit more like I've never gone out and moved and regretted it and thought that I wasted my energy on that walk or that bout of time. It always feels the opposite, like it gave me more than it took.
Yeah, it's just hard to start
So hard.
And what I realized with your book, your latest book, is our movement plan is always evolving. I think I was thinking about my perfect movement plan as something that's kind of the synthesis of my whole life and that I'm going to follow for the rest of my my days. So at this stage of your life, what's changing right now?
Well, so personally, now I'm a perimenopausal woman, right? So I'm almost 50. So my physiological needs are different now than they were when I was younger, you know, like when I had toddlers and was lactating, like, and had a specific set of physiology. I had a movement plan. So now I've got a different body that has different needs that I have to sort of shuffle around in different energy levels. I've also got older children. And so their needs change. So what we can overlap and do is different. Used to be totally self-guided when they were toddlers, I was really guiding it and they were following, and it switches. If you want to keep having that relationship with your kids, when they are older, they're asking you to do the things that they want to do. And you're saying yes, if you want to spend time with them in that way. And so the things that they want to do are not what I would prefer to do, but I prefer them. And so I'm learning new things, and those go into my movement plans as well. As I get older, my parents are getting older. I have one parent passed away, but then you have to start, like, there's caretaking in families sometimes that has to happen. And so your projects at hand are different. You know, when you're younger, you're starting a business, you're starting a website. And then when you're older, you're maybe figuring out how to I don't want to say wind things down, but it's not the same growth in the same way. I think like in nature, everything's cyclical. You know, there's the time where there's like in spring, there's a burst of energy, you know, like you can see things starting to come about. In summer, it's hard work. It's lots of output, lots of heat. And then in the fall, things just change. And I'm in the fall of life. And so I'm not in the winter. But there's a transition, and I really honor where I am rather than trying to push my summer or spring self. Like, that person's not here anymore. But my children are spring, and so I have to keep a little bit of spring, going on. So it's that. I've had injuries in the last couple of years, and so my movement plan would change with an injury. I fractured my foot, so that required a little bit of revamping. I'm through that now. It's been a year in. So yeah, your age and stage is always changing. So in the same way you're psychologically flexible, you are just checking in like, oh, I'm a different person now. What do I need? What do I find meaningful? What I find meaningful at almost 50 is different than what I found meaningful at 30.
I encourage everyone to get the new book and ask themselves those questions. I think that's what I loved about movement and following you, is it always brings us back to what kind of life do I want for me and my family? Is it going to be in French? Is it going to come in French?
Well, we have a lot of books in French, so that's always a decision to a French publisher. So hopefully, yes, if you like it, I don't know who. There's a Grow Wild's in French. Move Your DNA's in French, I think so.
Movement Matters also.
And Movement Matters. Yeah, so I would imagine that probably whoever published Move Your DNA would be offered it first because it goes so well with that book.
Yeah. Thanks for this time with me. I was super thrilled to get a yes from you after following you for years, and I was just too shy to ask you. But we'll keep talking about your work and encourage people to follow you. One last question. I know you just finished your book, but are you already thinking about the next one? Because I know you're so prolific.
Because you know me. Yes, there's one more coming, and it's actually a book on psychology. that I'm co-writing with a psychologist specifically about the things that we were talking about today. What do I need to do with my mind to help me? Like, it's called, I know I should exercise, but, and it's just, it's like, how do I make that transition? And it's all of the common reasons that people have, and how to like look at each example in these different ways that will help you go, oh, this is what I need to do then.
Oh, that's good. That's good. So when it comes out, we'll have, I invite you for another talk to dive deeper into this. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much for having me, Marie-Claude.